most kids would leave me alone, but somehow they could tell I was different. They made fun of how far away I lived. They called my dad a sourdough. I was a blabbermouth as a kid, telling my dad stories I made up for hours. But after that show and tell, I didn't tell him much anymore. He didn't know exactly what was wrong, but his best guess was that the toys he carved weren't cool enough. He carved me a tank and tried to tell me what it was like to be in a real tank as a serviceman.
I didn't know your dad was in the military.
Yeah, in the army. The sad thing is that I'd pretty much forgotten until just now. There's so much I still don't know about him.
I'm sorry. He knows how much you love him. You're going to see him again soon and have some closure, I'm sure.
A lot of people have gotten confused why Joseph's father is called a sourdough, and it's not stated outright at the beginning of the game, but Joseph and his dad, they grew up in Alaska. And I don't have a real connection to Alaska except through friends who lived there, and it was also the place that me and my dad were going to go right before he passed away. But I love the idea of Alaska being like this beautiful solitary place. But anyway, what that has to do with sourdough is it's an Alaskan slang term about like someone who lives in the backwoods, like a redneck in Alaska. So I thought that was just to put some authenticity into the game. I added that word. The older I got, the more I withdrew. I asked myself, why talk to anybody anyway? Why bother when I'm happy by myself? I started drawing a lot, mostly animals I saw in the woods by my home. I then imagined designing my own hideouts with things like TVs and pantries full of chips and cookies. I think that idea of leaving home and drawing blueprints started my career. I found a lot of solace in that.
I'm not surprised, but I did the same thing, you know? There's something special about having a place to call your own.
And now look at us. Well, if you count renting in an overpriced city.
It's as close as we can get for now.
I thought it was important to say that, yes, I actually did draw this with crayons. And it was just funny to me one day that I was like, I'm working on my game, and I pulled out my little 1-year-old's like crayon set to draw this item for this game. I just realized just now that I probably threw away the original. I probably should have kept it and given it away to somebody, but oh well. I feel like one of the main reasons people play small indie games is because they are so personal and intimate. So I tried to put myself into this game as much as possible. So almost all the vignettes or little stories you hear in this game, they come from my childhood, where I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Central Virginia in the United States. So yeah, that's probably why I love games like this so much, where you explore this open, wide environment and just find interesting things, because that's exactly what I did as a kid. This is the level that I showed at PAX West, which was a crazy dream come true, that this hobby project was being shown next to all these amazing indie games. So I decided to show this level because it's smaller, there's like some jumping puzzles, and I thought it was a good entry into the game. But the one thing I can't seem to forget is, right before we opened to the public, there was an indie dev superstar. Like, you've definitely heard of his games. And I was like terrified. He wanted to try it out. So I said, of course, like, please give me your feedback. And he was super nice, super talented, of course. But this embarrassing bug happened, which I'd never seen before in my life, where when he dug the item up, he jumped right after, and it created the dust cloud to permanently be on the rest of the level. It wouldn't turn off. So it looked like this fart cloud following the fox as it just kept running with this beautiful music and serious voiceover. And it was horrible. I think about that every time I look at this level. But, you know, I was able to fix it, so I'm glad someone could at least find that bug. My teenage years were full of sketching, angst, and trouble. I wasn't popular or unpopular. Maybe just forgettable. I guess that gave me a sense of freedom. So I hung out with crazy kids, doing crazy things, even though I mostly just watched the chaos ensue. We did it all. Put fireworks in mailboxes, hide roadkill in people's garages, break windows of the barber shop in Anchorage. My dad was furious, but he was so busy working he couldn't do much to stop me from going out.
I think being an adult means there's no one to stop you making hard decisions. He had to make a living, and he couldn't be in two places at once.
Yeah, I realize that now. But at the time, I was sure he was more interested in growing his business than what was going on with me. I always wanted this game to be very meditative and relaxing, but I know there's a balance between keeping the player's interest. So I added this butterfly jumping mechanic just to spice things up. I used a plugin called Playmaker for Unity, which in a visual editor lets you do interactive things, which is perfect for me because I do come from a film and design background. But on the flip side, I really wish I was good at code, because this jumping mechanic, the jumping mechanic in the whole game actually, has frustrated a lot of players. But hopefully I've been able to fine-tune it, so it should feel a lot better now. I would just hate that this meditative game would get frustrating, so I've definitely I've lowered the gravity, I've made the jumps more consistent, so hopefully people can just focus on the world and the story. He was working another late night, and my friends were over, saying how bored they were and how they had come all the way out to my house for nothing. One of them mentioned how that old, ugly beyond belief truck was still in the garage, and how we should take it for a spin. I was only 15, so I kind of fought it for a while. The next thing I knew, we were careening around the mountain path, rocks spitting onto the sides of the cliff, while my dad's cringeworthy bluegrass blared out the speakers. I drove while my friends were in the back of that yellow and purple truck, throwing beer bottles and trash at anything remotely interesting. Felt like I was soaring in the air with borrowed wings. But all good things have endings. A cop outside of Eagle River pulled us over after he saw us in a bottle rocket into someone's yard. What followed was a long night of talking to disappointed adults and feeling smaller than ever.
Os bonequinhos quando pular.
I always wanted this game to be very meditative and relaxing, but I know there's a balance between keeping the player's interest. So I added this butterfly jumping mechanic just to spice things up. I used a plugin called Playmaker for Unity, which in a visual editor lets you do interactive things, which is perfect for me because I do come from a film and design background. But on the flip side, I really wish I was good at code, because this jumping mechanic, the jumping mechanic in the whole game actually, has frustrated a lot of players. But hopefully I've been able to fine-tune it, so it should feel a lot better now. I would just hate that this meditative game would get frustrating, so I've definitely, I've lowered the gravity, I've made the jumps more consistent, so hopefully people can just focus on the world and the story.
Eita.
After he drove me home from the police station, I blew up at him, saying how I never wanted to be like him, how I was going to be someone and leave that hick icebox for good. He just looked forward at the road with tired eyes. I took out that bluegrass tape from the cassette deck and chucked it out the window. In my sage teenage wisdom, I thought I had proved the ultimate point. But my dad had a different idea. He slammed the brakes, slowly bowed his head while gripping the steering wheel, and finally looked at me. All he said, like it was a polite request, was, "Make this right." I sat there in silence, fuming, but I eventually got out and combed every square inch of the woods, muttering profanity after profanity. I found it 30 minutes later, near a small waterfall off the road. I went back to the truck, put the wet tape back in, and sure enough it worked. We didn't speak another word to each other the rest of the night.
Wow, I knew you were a crazy teenager, but...
It's hard to believe, isn't it? It surprises me too. It's like I didn't really know who that kid was back then. I bet my dad thought the same thing over and over. It's almost like he was saying, "Make this right," to himself, more than to me. You may have noticed there's a little pond here, and believe it or not, I tried everything I could to get swimming working in this game, and I just could not do it, unfortunately. And so all the water in this game you can just stand in, which is, it still bums me out, but the systems were not working, it was buggy, so I just had to throw it out, which, I think it's okay. I wish it was there, but again, the focus of this game is on the story. You may have noticed there's a little pond here, And believe it or not, I tried everything I could to get swimming working in this game, and I just could not do it, unfortunately. And so all the water in this game you can just stand in, which is, it still like bums me out, but the systems were not working, it was buggy. So I just had to throw it out, which, you know, I think it's okay. Like, I wish it was there, but again, the focus of this game is on the story. My biggest hope for the players that are playing is that they realize how similar these two parallel stories are, of this fox looking for her missing cubs, and also of this son reconnecting with his father. And so I try to add little touches in the voiceover and in the environment to help draw those parallels, even if they seem totally dissimilar. A big example is the truck, for instance, that Joseph grew up with. It's purple and yellow like the butterflies for this fox. So I tried to add as many touches like that throughout the story as possible.
Caramba, meio estranho medir a distância. Ih. E aí, ordinário, esse aqui é o jogo da cadela manca. Caraca, tava até intertido com o jogo, que agora que eu vi seus comentários, cara. Entra lá, mete o fone lá também, dá ideia. Firmeza.
My friends would laugh about that night and talk about how crazy it was, and I laughed along, pretending it didn't bother me. But it did. I imagined my friends growing old in the bush, unable to find that thrill in those godforsaken ice fields. It's like those mountains were a literal wall, keeping me from leaving, where all I would have to look forward to are lumber yards and evening beers. I had to climb over. That was my only goal for a long time. If there was some way I could take my love of drawing and turn it into a way of escape, nothing would make me happier. I wanted to create instead of tearing trees down. I wanted to move to the lower 48, not because I hated it there in Alaska, but I hated the idea of it. It's like all of that spite inside me had created this monster which followed me around my whole teenage years. I put so much energy into doing what others didn't expect of me. Why did I do that?
There's one fact you're forgetting, though. If you didn't have that fire in you, we probably would have never met.
You're absolutely right. Maybe the destination is all that matters in the end. But then why am I awake? Why am I seeing this fox go on her journey? And why can't I stop thinking about my dad?
Bonito.
Almost all stories follow the same kind of structure, and it starts with an inciting event, and then there's rising action, and then there's a climax, and then there's falling action. And it's actually really difficult to make an interesting story where you only hear these two people talking, and it's spoken through a dream that's already happened, and the most of the action is about this animal that isn't directly related to this couple at all. So I don't know what I was thinking, but my hope was that it would create some interesting things and connections that I didn't see before. And that was kind of the whole exercise of making the first tree. I did want to do something a little different with this level. I wanted it to be more open world feel, and that there was something blocking your progress, so it did encourage people to look closely and see how to unlock this blocked way. And I do like just walking around this level and listening to the beautiful music by Josh Kramer. His work really sets the mood for the whole game. My dad built a lot of stuff in his free time. If he wasn't watching fly fishing or reading Tom Clancy novels, he was carving something. He made tons of birdhouses. Not that he was into bird watching, but I think he really missed working and adding on to the home. If he couldn't afford the time to build onto our own house, he would have to settle with watching birds move into their little homes. We kept an old mattress in the bed of that ugly yellow truck, so we would drive it deep into the woods and then watch the birds fly into their houses while the sun set. Usually it was accompanied by venison jerky or cold Coke, but not a lot of talking, which is how we both liked it. Earlier I said I just love going through video games and exploring, like looking at every nook and cranny and just trying to find little details. And I think that started because in middle school and high school, I would make mods for my favorite games, namely Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast, and Far Cry. And I loved like this huge world of mod makers who would make these levels, and it'd be like the most random creative things, and I would just love exploring, usually multiplayer levels, by myself. So even though I went to college for film, before that, like before high school, I was making video games and mods, and it was my favorite thing in the world. I made a ton of different levels. I made an abandoned space hotel with a dance floor and cafeteria. I made a haunted campground with cabins and tents. I made this whole city with like the first ever day-night cycle with running showers and stuff in the hotel and the apartment buildings. And I just loved making those mods, and I think that carries over to my game, The First Tree, and also the one before that, Home is Where One Starts, which is it's exploration. You're just looking around and appreciating the details. at my most distant, at the times when I detested him the most, he kept reaching out. For a year straight, he asked me every week when we were going camping. I thought he was just dense. Eventually, to shut him up, I agreed. We carried out the worn lawn chairs from the garage and set up a cinder block campfire at the site we'd always used behind the house. We walked down the mountain path, talking in the warm sunshine we only got a couple months of the year. Those 3 obsidian rocks shimmered alongside the shore, almost like sparklers pressed against a dark window. I'll never forget that wet stone on my feet, or how those massive mountains looked even bigger in the lake's reflection. I felt small, but grateful. As the sun set, my dad found something I hadn't seen for a long time. The tree where I'd made my first carving when I was 6. I hadn't even carved it. My dad had helped me, but I still called it my tree. Something about seeing my name there made me open up, and we talked about everything that night in that old camouflage tent. I told him how much I loved sketching and design, and how it would be a dream to study architecture in Seattle. I told him how I didn't get along with my friends much anymore, but that I didn't mind being alone. He told me he was there for me, and he joked that if all he had to do was write my name on a tree to finally get me to talk, he would have left me carved logs with novels on them in front of my room every morning. I don't know why it took me that long to realize it, but it was then I knew how much he had sacrificed for me.
I don't think the first tree could work at all without the music by Josh Kramer. And his music, it's actually publicly available to license, and so it was affordable for me since this was a hobby project. And it's something I like to tell new indie developers all the time, like, you can't afford that composer, you can't afford a full-time programmer, you need to cut corners and finish your game, and the way to do that is to use these amazing publicly available assets that anyone can purchase and license. And so his music is incredible, and I actually haven't talked to him that much, I've just emailed him. But his music was nominated for Most Emotional Music at the Emotional Game Awards in France, and he's just a really nice guy. And I think there's so much amazing content out there that if you're thinking of making a game, like, look around and see what you can make work on a tight budget, because it worked really well for the first tree. I did want to do something a little different with this level. I wanted it to be more open world feel, and that there was something blocking your progress, so it did encourage people to look closely and see how to unlock this blocked way. And I do like just walking around this level and listening to the beautiful music by Josh Kramer. His work really sets the mood for the whole game.
Sai, velho.
E aí?
Beleza, meu querido? Jogando
Como é que...
o joguinho da raposa aqui.
Ah, como é que eu vejo?
Você vai ter que ir lá no YouTube, né? Ou clica em atividades.
Atividade?
É, lá tipo no meu perfil você vai ver minhas atividades. Lá vai ver que eu tô transmitindo.
Ah, é aqui. Pera aí.
Conseguiu?
Acho pelo YouTube que não dá delay.
Ah, é melhor.
Consegui.
Aí. Então, cara, esse joguinho é bacana, cara. Eu gosto de jogo indie pra caramba. E comecei a namorar esse jogo já faz um tempo, eu tô olhando. Mas eu quando eu olhei, falei, mano, R$35 não dá não. Aí passou um tempo, eu olhei, eu falei 25.
Qual que é o nome desse jogo aí, né?
First Tree.
First Tree?
É, primeira árvore. Então, 30 eu falei, 30 eu não pago não. 25 eu não pago não. Aí pra 15, pra 15 eu pago. Jogo bonito, cara. É meio...
Mas o que você tem que fazer nele?
Tipo, pelo que eu percebi tem as legendas aqui. O cara fica contando a história de infância dele. Daí tipo ele usa a raposa pra ilustrar tipo a infância dele. Porque ele passou na Alasca e tal. É mundo aberto, tipo exploração. Tem umas estrelinhas pra pegar. Tem tipo uns objetos que remetem à infância dele, tá ligado? Você tem que ir atrás desses objetos aí. Ele escava. Bem, é que eu tava na pilha do Metal Gear lá, mano. Eu falei, deixa eu jogar um jogo completamente diferente pra ver se eu me dou uma acalmada.
Senão você mata um, né?
Nossa, tá louco. Eu quero jogar um bem nada a ver com Metal Gear, assim, que não lembra nem os botões. Daí ficar a cabeça alivia. Ai, caramba.
Higiene, né?
Isso não é higiene mental, mano. Só que esse joguinho ele é... Tem hora que você vai dar uns pulos, assim, ele dá uns bug, ele entra na tela, dá uns pulos, não é muito preciso. Só que também você não tem inimigo, não tem nada, então você não precisa de tanta precisão a esse ponto. Mas visualmente é bem bonito, bem colorido. Eu gostei.
Tem inimigo?
Não.
Mas o que você tem que fazer? Você só tem que ir andando?
Você anda, explora o cenário, é igual o Journey. O Journey também não tem inimigo. Journey, Flower, Flow. O Flow tem, o Flow é só inimigo. Flow é só bactéria. O Flower você joga com um monte de pétala de rosa.
Você tem que ir até um objetivo e só.
Tipo, tem tipo uns brinquedos, uns objetos escondidos, escavados, você vai e escava eles, né?
He was only free in the evenings, so I would spend the day wasting time.
Só que tem uns esquemas. Agora essa tela aqui, pra passar de fase, eu tenho que achar 3 totens lá, eu achei 2. E
Sometimes
De vez em quando aparecem umas
borealis
dicas,
would
tá
cast
ligado?
a
Tipo,
cold green glow on the mountainside.
umas luzes assim pra onde
We would
você tem
finish
que
our
ir.
route underneath a twilight sky. Sometimes I was lonely during those summer days, but there was comfort in the routine.
Olha,
A lot of teenagers are
aqui embaixo
looking for
tá
the daily grind,
a
though.
legenda.
There's nothing wrong with wanting to get out, to leave your childhood home. You wanted to progress, to make something of yourself.
Yeah,
É
you're right.
legal que ele tem umas fitas cassetes que você acha aqui no jogo.
I'm sure it's the same as how I
E o
left
cara
it.
que tá
Then why does it
falando
feel
aí
so
é o
different?
desenvolvedor do jogo.
I
Tem
doubt
hora
you're
que ele
the
fala
only
o que,
adult
que ele
who went
usou,
back and asked
que ele
that
fala que tá
question.
fazendo jogo de mundo aberto, que ele gosta de jogo de mundo aberto. Fala do Tom Clancy, né, que faz o Rainbow Six. Começa a falar de uma galera, que bacana. Fala que fez faculdade de acho que de bagulho de gamers, não sei o que, né? Essa porcaria.
Da hora, hein?
Bacaninha, mano. Eu tô enroscado aqui que eu tenho que chegar ali em cima. Tem que ver onde é que eu tenho que ir.
Esse jogo, mano, ele é tão tranquilo que dá até sono.
Ele dá, não, pra quem é espectador, vixe Maria, mano. Eu ainda tô, né, olhando aqui as coisas. Mas o espectador não deve ser muito legal mesmo, não.
É um jogo pra você relaxar, né?
É, não, esse aqui, igual eu falei pra você, tava jogando Metal Gear, eu já tava já ficando louco, cara, o Metal Gear Survive lá. Daí eu falei, ah, não. Falei, deixa eu sair.
Tem que jogar outra coisa, cara, pelo amor de Deus.
Eu tô jogando só ele, peguei o Marvel Infinity lá, né, tirei uma onda com ele. Esse final lá no modo história, ô mano, o modo história dele é bom pra caramba, cara.
Marvel?
É, o Marvel Infinity lá. Eu acho que muita gente não gostou, igual eu escrevi lá no grupo lá. Acho que é a simplicidade dos combos, mano. Os caras simplificou. Mas igual eu falei lá, você chegou a jogar Tatsunoko vs Capcom do Nintendo Wii?
Joguei e não gostei, cara.
Então, eu curti pra caramba. E delas que veio, achei. E delas que vieram, né? A Marvel vs Capcom 2, a 3.
Não, dela que veio a 3.
Então, ela que veio esses crossover aí desse sistema e foi ela.
Todo mundo sabe que a melhor Marvel é a Marvel vs Capcom.
A 2 é fodida também, mano. Quando entrou o Cable lá.
Então, mas essas aí não veio do Tatsunoko.
Não, tô falando que é a crossover. Que já misturou a galera da loucura.
Ah, tá,
Né?
virou Casa da Mãe Joana.
É. Que você vê, o Nintendo Wii tinha 3 botões, né? Soco, chute e o botão de especial.
Isso mesmo.
Essa Marvel ela usa, deixa eu ver, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 botões. O quadrado, se você ficar apertando só quadrado, ele dá o combo, joga pro alto e dá um ar combo, sozinho. Você fica apertando quadrado assim, manda pro alto e regaça. Daí, depois que você tem como a gente tem a moral, a gente consegue mandar pro alto e fazer o combo na mão. Tem um botão de especial, um botão de ativar a joia infinito lá, né? As joias lá. E a Tatsunoko é a mesma coisa, ela tinha 3 botões, né? Soco, chute e o especial. Quando você apertava 2 para dar o cross, né? A hora que sai um personagem entra outro, arregaçando. Totalmente inspirada na Tatsunoko vs Capcom, que eu curti pra caramba. Tem um gráfico fudido pro Nintendo Wii, mano, aquele jogo. E muito rápido, mano.
Esse daí o Wolverine tem, né?
É, não tem.
Os caras ficou muito putos por causa disso.
Ah, é, não, tem a Marvel, não tem o Wolverine, né? É porque a história ali não encaixa ele, né, mano? Encaixar ele ali com o Thanos e tal, com os Sigmas e tudo não... Né, onde entrar o Wolverine?
Só que aí é que tá, né? No quadrinhos o Wolverine encaixa com o Thanos.
Não, encaixa com o Thanos, mas não com essa parte, né? Eles fizeram uma história... Pra você ter uma ideia, o Thanos pegou até o Denso Hadou lá do Ryu lá, o bagulho que ele fica do mal lá, o Hadouken do mal, tá ligado?
É assim.
Thanos é fudido agora. Agora não, né? Sempre. Mano, esse cara é terrível. Mas eu gostei, mano. Achei bacana.
Perpetrator stood nearby.
Não, cara, o gráfico não achei bonito não.
Ô louco, achei bonito pra cacete.
My dad is dead,
Achei mais um fiote
and he's
morto.
never coming back, Rachel. I can tell you these stories, but I can never reminisce with him again. He can never hold a grandchild that we'll
fome,
probably
mano,
never be
já sei
able to
ainda.
have. I can never talk to him again.
Caraca,
I'll
tá
never
mandando
be able
lobão,
to say
né?
I'm sorry for everything. It was really important to me that the wolf in this story that takes the fox's cubs, that it wasn't explained at all. Like it's just this entity that's in the background. And of course it's supposed to represent something bigger than a wolf or even the
Ruim
fox.
que o
It's supposed to
pulo, cara, eu não
represent,
consigo.
like the specter
É
of
meio
death.
ruim pra
Doesn't, it
você
comes when you least
ter
expect
uma
it.
noção de
There's
pulo.
no justification.
Daí às
He's
vezes
just
eu
there,
perco o
always
item
watching.
pulando assim. Você pode ver, olha, ele plana, ó. Ele dá um tempo, mas é estranho.
Nossa, a raposa plana, que brisa.
É, ó. Olha. Tem a impressão que no céu que você pula, o cenário dá uma segurada. $98, 100 é mais um troféu pra galera. Olha que estranha a câmera, que legal. Eu gostei disso aqui. A câmera, ela não tá virando pra um lado pro outro, ela tá inclinando o chão.
Mesmo, né?
Ó. Depois dá pra se aproximar da raposa e deixar ela longe. Deixa uma coisa pra trás. Calma, 98 estrelinhas, que eu pegar a centésima aí eu vou jantar, cara. Tô com fome. Ô, cara, tem que pegar a Marvel vs Capcom 3 lá pra gente jogar junto, caramba, eu sei, Julião.
Se pensar, hein?
Ela é boa, pô. Que a gente vai jogar no esquema nosso, né, mano? Vai ficar jogando que nem aqueles caras ficam jogando magia. Strike, magia, strike. Especial. Dá pra tirar uma onda pra caramba. É boa de jogar rápido.
É pesado?
É nada. Acho que é 2 GB.
2 GB?
2 GB. Pequenininha ela, porque ela é do Play 3, né, mano? Eles fizeram a versão pro Play 4 aí, mas é 2 GB. Não faz nada, não. O HD.
Ah, caralho, é Ultimate 3 ou Infinity, porra?
A Ultimate 3, eu tenho as duas. A
Olha que você pegou.
A que eu peguei agora, que eu comprei em mídia física, foi a Infinity. Que veio com os cards, você viu que muito louco, mano?
Ah, tá. O que tá lá na promoção é a Ultimate.
É, a Ultimate, a da hora.
Anymore.
A Infinity eu acho que tá 70 conto a versão normal. E Que a versão de lixo lá sente cacetada. Cara, girei a câmera agora aqui, não sei nem pra onde eu vou. Falta só 2 estrelinhas pra eu jantar e ganhar um troféu. Sobe aí, fia, não sobe. Tô com bastante jogo indie, cara. Comprei uma parte de jogo indie. Tem um Beyond the Eyes também que é legal, que é uma menininha cega lá atrás do gatinho. Eu gosto desses joguinhos assim, né? O Journey, você jogou o Journey?
Tenho aqui até hoje, mano, não comecei eles.
Cara, eu vou falar um negócio pra você, meu irmão. Pode jogar, que é um jogo que te dá uma experiência muito louca, cara. Muito diferente. Nossa, você tá vendo esse cenário, Oscar?
Aqui tá carregando só.
Joseph,
Puta que pariu, lembrei dos Cavaleiros do Zodíaco, cara.
I'm sorry for everything, and I know you need space, but
Nossa, que lindo, velho. Olha isso.
you don't need to feel so lost.
Olha, cara, tô andando na água.
Joseph,
Lindo.
have I ever told you what my mother was
Lindo
like?
sinal. Olha, muito bem feito, né, cara?
É verdade, esse tipo de jogo é muito bem feito.
Olha, cara. Porra.
Hello, my name is Elise Whaley, and I was the voice actress for Rachel. I'm also David's wife,
Caraca, coisa mais bonita, mano.
so that was convenient for working together. I was actually the voice actress for his first game, Home is Where One Starts, and I guess that I did a good enough job that David wanted me back, so
Olha.
I did the voice acting for this one as well. David definitely coached me through it because I'm pretty inexperienced when it comes to that. Home is Where One Starts was my first time ever doing voice acting of any kind. And we watched a lot of trailers of movies we liked to get the voice right of female leads who were talking in the trailer and try to mimic that and bring that into the game. So that had the right kind of feel and the right kind of atmosphere for the voice. My character actually is the same character from Home is Where One Starts. If you've played that game, you probably connected that together. And this is her
Seguiu o viado brilhante.
probably about 15 years later, maybe 20 years later. In this
Purpurinado.
game. I was happy to revisit the character of Rachel. We kind of leave her in an ambiguous spot in Home is Where One Starts. It definitely ends on a hopeful note, but
Mas
there's
na
not a
hora eu
lot of
lembrei do
details.
C fazendo a
And in this game, you see
posição
that she's
aí.
able to move on through a lot of her
E as
issues that she
estrelas
had from her
atrás.
abusive home and be able to start her own family and start a new cycle without that abuse, which I think is really inspiring.
You know what it's like not to have a mom at home. And you know how hard that made my childhood. What helped me was watching the birds in the morning before the school bus came. I thought that my mother was one of those birds. And it made me want to be free like her. My mom taught me how to fold origami cranes while she was in the hospital. So I told myself I would fold one every day until I could fly myself. I think we both have always loved animals. And for me, that love started with a dog. Sometimes this Rottweiler would come up to our property line and wait at the fence for me, but only once in a while. I was sure to check every day immediately after school, and it usually ended in disappointment. I would even steal money from my passed-out dad just so I could buy these off-brand dog biscuits. Even when she did stop by, she never went beyond the fence. Why was she so scared?
Caramba.
So it's always interesting working with your spouse because, especially on a creative project, because they want your feedback, but it's something that's also dear to their heart, and they're dear to your heart, and you definitely don't want to hurt their feelings. So I was a little nervous when David asked me, he had finally finished writing the script, and he asked me to go over it and see what I thought. And I had minored in English. I majored in art, but I minored in English, so I felt like I had a little bit of experience. But I was definitely like a little scared because you don't want to be too harsh, but you also want to be honest. And it was the biggest relief when I read the script, and I was like, oh, good. My husband's a good writer. I don't have to change that much about this, just a few like grammatical things. And that was just like the biggest relief for me because.
Vou sair aqui, Oscar. Vou comer. Depois eu volto aí de novo.
Você dá um toque aqui no celular.
Demorou.
É nóis, filho.
Falou, meu querido.
Falou.